Good evening and welcome to Lawyers on the Line. I'm Stephanie Balmer, an associate attorney with the Duluth law firm of Falsani, Balmer, Peterson, Quinn, and Beyer, and this evening's moderator. Tonight's topic is Social Security. Making a claim for Social Security benefits is not always as easy as it sounds, especially if you get denied. Knowing about eligibility requirements, medical evidence, appeal procedures, and vocational evaluations can help. Now, I'm so pleased to welcome tonight's panel, Sean M. Quinn, partner with the Falsani, Balmer, Peterson, Quinn, and Beyer law firm, and Ed Utites of Utites Rehabilitation Services. Well, we'll start with a couple questions here. We have a caller from Duluth, Minnesota. This is a question for you, Ed. Do you consider the functional limitations set by my doctor or the Social Security Administration's doctor?
Actually, that depends, Stephanie, on the types of questions I get from either the judge or the attorney offhand. As a vocational expert at Social Security hearings, I can't interpret medical information myself. So if the judge decides to take limitations or medical restrictions from the claimant's doctor and pose those in the form of hypothetical questions, those I respond to. If the attorney involved takes hypothetical or takes limitations and poses hypotheticals based on whoever's restrictions, I respond to those also. I can't by myself pick out a certain set of restrictions and deal with those independently.
So your answers are limited to whatever inquiry either the attorney or representative makes to you or else the judge?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
This is maybe a good question for both of you. Let's start with you, Sean. What is a vocational expert?
Well, that is a good question. That is, right there. A vocational expert is the individual who comes into the courtroom and provides information to the judge. These are the jobs that people can do depending upon what limitations, as Ed just alluded to, that I'm given. So if the judge were to say to Mr. Utites, I want you to assume somebody can lift 50 pounds or 20 pounds or 10 pounds, then his answer is going to differ. But his job is to tell us what jobs someone can do depending upon what limitations exist. And also to interpret some of their past work history,
Sure.
Correct?
To classify their past work. And past work is defined as work that's essentially performed in the last 15-year period. I have to classify those jobs according to exertional levels and skill levels, so whether they're sedentary, light, medium, heavy, or very heavy work, skilled, semi-skilled, or unskilled for that matter. Then also, depending on the case, some non-exertional factors can come into play also. Are there visionary problems? Are there hearing problems, speaking problems? Are there environmental problems involved? I can deal with those types of issues depending on the type of situation that we have.
How do you get involved in a Social Security claim, Ed?
I get a call from one of the hearing assistants, either Minneapolis or Fargo, or now I've been doing cases from Colorado and Ohio and other states for that matter, asking for my availability. They schedule me, and then normally anywhere from 3 to 2 months in advance, they'll send me a disc with a person's vocational background on it, and I have to look up those jobs, classify them according to the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, and then be there at the hearing to give my testimony.
Sean, are you able to give a percentage of how many hearings involve a vocational expert such as Mr. Utites here?
Well, I've been led to believe from some research I've done that in certain states or certain hearing offices, maybe it's certain federal appeal districts, not every case, but in Minnesota and in Wisconsin, or at least northern Wisconsin, there are vocational experts at every disability hearing. I don't think I've ever been to one without a vocational expert, so I'd say 100% in our viewing area.
Mr. Utites, let me ask you this one. In your experience, what percentage of claimants are unrepresented either by a representative or an attorney representative?
I've done thousands of these hearings over the years, and it's my professional opinion that roughly 15 to maybe 20% are unrepresented. And what's really interesting about that is when a claimant comes to a hearing unrepresented, and they see a judge and they see me and the hearing assistant and whatever, I think many of those realize at that point in time that they're over their head, and they'll ask for a postponement. And the judges can give a postponement one time to seek representation, but once that second hearing is scheduled and that person shows up without a representative, that's it. The hearing goes forward regardless of having a representative or not.
Maybe this is a good time to seg into a question for you, Sean. Who needs a representative? Do you need someone to help you with this? Why isn't the evidence enough?
Well, once you get to the hearing stage, you should have a representative because, as we've already kind of talked about a little bit, there's going to be questions for Mr. Utides as the medical or the vocational expert. Oftentimes, there's a medical expert at the hearing. The judge is going to ask a lot of questions. One of the things that the representative does for the claimant is prepare the record so that maybe some of the evidence that the claimant thinks is in the record isn't there. Make sure it's in there. 2, prepare that person for what to expect at the hearing. And 3, be able to ask the relevant questions based upon the facts and based upon the law to Mr. Utides or to the medical expert. There's probably a medical expert at about 40% of the hearings, give or take?
30–40%.
Yeah, so the average individual is not prepared to ask the right questions to Mr. Utides or the right questions to the medical expert. And so you wouldn't go into any kind of circumstance and pretend like you know what you're doing when you don't. And that's what someone's doing when they're going into a courtroom and they don't know what to expect.
Here's a call from Hibbing, Minnesota. If you're an alcoholic or drug abuser, are you still entitled to Social Security benefits?
Well, yes and no. If alcoholism or drug addiction is the material factor for your disability, the reason you can't work is because of those problems, then you're not going to get those benefits. In the late 90s, I think it was around 97, 98, the federal government changed the law that strictly prohibit those who have those problems from getting benefits because of those problems. And in fact, all people who were on benefits because of those problems got kicked off and had to reapply for benefits for other problems. Now, you can have those problems. You might be an alcoholic, but you might have a whole bunch of other medical problems too. And you can get benefits if those other medical problems are the reason that you are disabled. The difficult thing for the Social Security Administration, for the judge, and for the attorneys who are representing people is trying to figure out, well, what would this person be like if they stopped drinking? And that's not always easy to do.
Especially if the sobriety date is relatively recent.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Ed, here's a question for you from someone in Duluth. Are you an employee of the Social Security Administration, and how does that impact your testimony, if at all?
I am not an employee of the administration. I'm a private contractor. I have my own private vocational consulting business, and I'm called to those hearings as an impartial, neutral vocational expert. It's not an adversarial process for those attorneys and representatives that appear on a regular basis. They know the types of questions and the types of responses that I'm going to give. And so, again, it's not an adversarial process. Even though I'm paid by the Social Security Administration, I'm there to render an objective opinion based on the types of questions that are posed to me.
And I might add this. I do a lot of work in adversarial types of litigation, personal injury litigation, workers' comp litigation, where the insurance company will often hire what they refer to as an independent medical expert or an independent vocational expert. And those experts are paid directly by the insurance company to render opinions or testimony that is specifically to benefit the insurance company. In the Social Security case, as Ed said, it is not adversarial. And so I believe Mr. Utides and the other vocational experts, and for the most part, most of the medical experts, are pretty neutral and pretty straight shooters in those scenarios, unlike other litigation.
Claimants are getting a fair shake then?
They really
more
are.
or less. Okay. On that note, someone called in from Superior, Wisconsin, wondering how long will it take for me to receive an approval or denial on my disability claim?
Well, that's an excellent question. I get that question just about every day. Once you apply, it takes the Social Security Administration, and they work through a state system in Minnesota. It's out of St. Paul, in Wisconsin. It's out of Madison, where they hire state employees to do these disability determinations. And those folks typically take anywhere from 2 to maybe 6 months to make a decision on whether or not someone's disabled. If they deny the claim and if you appeal it, the next appeal typically takes another 2 to 6 months. If you get denied again and then you request a hearing in front of a judge, now you're going to wait about a year to have that hearing, and now you're already as much as a year into the proceeding, so it's almost 2 years from the date of your initial application before you might have your hearing in some cases. And as awful as that sounds, there are other parts of this country. The one area that comes to my mind is southern Florida, where the wait is maybe 1 more year beyond that, and other places where it's much shorter. It depends upon the backlog.
Here's a question from Saginaw. Are PTSD, manic depression, and anxiety disorders all considered disabilities?
Well, perhaps the best thing to do is those are all certainly medical conditions that can be disabling. The best thing to do, I suppose, is to define what disability is. Disability under the Social Security law is the inability to sustain a full-time job for a year or longer. So somebody doesn't have to be disabled for the rest of their lives, but what they have to do is be unable to work a full-time job for 12 months or longer. If you can work a full-time job for a day or a couple of days or even a week, and then you would have medical problems, physical, mental, it doesn't matter, that you wouldn't be able to get back to work, then you would be considered disabled as long as that condition lasts a year or longer. So can PTSD, for example, cause somebody to be unable to work? Absolutely. There are other people with PTSD that can work. It depends.
I think a lot of it depends on the severity of such.
Right.
Whether the condition, be it PTSD or anxiety problems or other types of mental health problems, if they're considered mild, there are many people out there working right now that have mild depression. If they're marked in a very severe type of a problem, that can be a horse of a different color. Yeah.
We have a question from somewhere. If 2 people get married and they were both widowed and they're both on Social Security, does one of them lose their Social Security? Don't say that depends.
I think my better answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I brought a prop for no particular reason, but I doubt the camera can get close up to this, but this is the Social Security regulation. This isn't even the statute. These are just the regulations, and it's really tiny print. I don't know if you folks can see that, but it's super tiny print, and it's, 1,400 pages long. The answer is somewhere in here, probably. I don't know that one off the top of my head, and I don't think I could find it real quickly.
So they should probably either contact their local office
Contact the local office or give someone like us a call.
A representative.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question from Chisholm. This has some specific numbers in here, but I get the idea. So both people are retired on disability. It sounds like they're both getting disability benefits. Is there a minimum amount you can draw? The wife is getting a certain amount and the husband is getting a certain amount, and they wanted to know if these numbers in particular are correct. But how are these numbers calculated?
Also really complicated, and I can't tell you the exact answer because I don't know. But what I do know is this: when you work, your Social Security taxes are paid out of your paycheck. If you look at your pay stub every week, every 2 weeks, however often you get paid, you'll see how much you're paying in Social Security benefits or taxes. And when you retire or you become disabled and you start drawing on your Social Security, the more you've worked and the higher you've paid taxes, the higher your benefit amount. I have represented people who are receiving only a couple of $100s in Social Security benefits because they worked very sporadically, part-time, not for a long period of time. They didn't put a lot into the system. They don't get a lot out. I've represented other people who have made 6 figures routinely, and then they get $2,200, $2,300 a month. So I can't tell these folks if the amount of money they're getting is correct, but I'm sure they can call their local office and say, how did you come up with that number?
Okay.
So.
What about people that don't have a work record?
Yeah, then people who don't have a work record, they don't get any Social Security disability benefits, they don't get any Social Security retirement benefits, but they can get SSI. Now, SSI is a welfare program that pays benefits to people who are disabled and who would otherwise qualify for welfare financially. And that benefit amount is presently around $700, plus or minus a few dollars. And so that's the same for everybody, although it can go down. It won't go up, but it can go down depending upon other assets or resources that you might be getting, or depending upon assets of other people that live in your house.
Speaking of past work, Ed, how do you classify an individual's past work?
It's classified by a number of different factors. The Dictionary of Occupational Titles has a classification system where they classify jobs as either sedentary, light, medium, heavy, or very heavy. And that's based primarily on lifting requirements and also on the amount of standing and or walking that's involved with a given occupation. Every job has got what's referred to as a specific vocational preparation number, an SVP number. And that's just a simple number that states how long it takes a person to typically learn a given occupation. And learning an occupation can be through formal education, or it can be through on-the-job experience. So those are the primary factors that one looks at to begin with. And then, as I mentioned earlier, depending on the type of case, there are other factors that come into play too, in terms of, did this person perform the job as it's typically performed? You know, if a construction worker is required to lift 100 plus pounds, did they lift that much? The file will normally indicate, as an example, 50 pounds. So they performed it a little differently as it's described in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles.
So the book says one thing, but the decision will ultimately be made, or at least considered, based on what that particular claimant actually did.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Here's a question from Duluth, Minnesota. If I'm on Social Security disability benefits, when will they end? Will I have to be reevaluated every so often?
Well, you don't have to be reevaluated. It's up to the Social Security Administration how often they're going to reevaluate you. The younger you are when you first become eligible for Social Security disability, the more likely you're going to be reevaluated. And then what they will do is they'll contact you, they'll ask you some questions, fill out a form on where you've been doctoring, what kind of problems you still have, what medicines you're still taking, etc. And then they will make a determination. Typically, 80 to 90% of the time, they gather the information and say, oh yes, you're still disabled, and they don't bother you again for a number of years. When do the benefits end? They end when you reach full retirement age, and then they become retirement benefits, but the actual cash that you're taking home every week, or excuse me, every month, is the same. It just changes the classification from disability to retirement benefits.
When is full retirement age?
I think it's 67 right now, 68. They're ramping it up.
Okay.
It's going to be
66 now for most folks born before, I think, 1950.
okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
And it keeps going up, and it's going to be 70 soon enough.
Yeah.
It
To
will.
account for longer life expectancies.
People are living longer, they're working longer, and retirement age is going to change.
Is that something people can rebut? For example, my mother and father both lived till age 100. I should keep getting disability benefits?
Well, I don't think it really makes a difference. It's still the same amount of money.
Sure.
So whether
Okay.
it's called disability or retirement, it's still the same amount of money. It's still a Social Security check. It's still taxed the same way or not taxed the same way.
This is a question from Superior, Wisconsin. When on SSI is there coverage for dependents? So,
For SSI, there isn't.
okay.
For regular disability benefits, the DIB benefits, if you have a child under the age of 18, then your child will get benefits based upon your account. And again, the amount depends upon how much you put into the system. I've represented some people who, because of their low regular disability benefit, their children get an extra $2 or $3 a month, as if that, why even bother? Whereas other folks might get an extra $400, $500, $600 a month for their children.
Okay. Here's a question from Duluth. When I turn 65, can I start drawing Social Security on the first of that year, or do I have to wait until my December birth date that year?
I'm not sure I understand
Well-
the question. I assume that person means the year that they turn 65.
Yeah, that's how I'm
and,
taking it.
And I don't know the answer to that. I really don't.
I do.
Oh, you do?
Ed!
Ed knows.
With the, if a person, once they reach their full retirement age, benefits normally start that first month right after that. And they have a schedule that you can go online and look this up. They don't necessarily pay you on the first of each month. It depends where your birthday falls.
Oh, right, yeah.
If, for example, if you were born December 30th, that would normally be the fourth Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday of that preceding month. But the first check you'll get on the first of the month within that first week.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
then again,
glad
it
you're
might
here,
not
Ed.
be, and it might not be 65. It might be 66 or 67 even.
Okay.
If you do retire prior to your full retirement age, there is a deduction in terms of what you're going to receive.
Yeah, and actually, something Ed said reminded me of something else. The Social Security Administration does have a pretty good website that has answers to a lot of these questions, and it's www.ssa, which stands for Social Security Administration, .gov, government. Do not type into the search bar ssa.gov because you'll get directed to a law firm in Utah, I believe. But the address is www.ssa.gov. And there are a lot of good answers. That's also how you can apply for benefits through that website.
Do you need a representative to help you apply?
I don't believe you do, and I typically do not help people apply because the questions go to past work history, medical problems, what medications you take, who are your doctors, etc. Those are things the person knows. I don't know the answers to those questions.
This is a question from Duluth, and we talked about this a little bit, how they figure out the benefit amounts. This question says, disabled at 45 years, when I turn 65, does it decrease or stay the same? But you mentioned that it stays the same.
It just transitions from one label to another, but the amount's the same.
Okay.
And again, it may not be 65, but when it becomes full retirement age.
This is a question, I'm going to do my best to figure out what this is going for. It sounds like this person received disability all their life, beginning when they were 5. Then they get married and they lose it. Do we know why that would be?
Well, if they started getting benefits when they were 5, they probably were receiving SSI because there is no regular disability for children because you don't have a work history that put anything into the system. So it's probably SSI. And SSI benefits, again, are paid, it's a welfare benefit, and the amount of money in your household counts, and that includes the amount of money that your spouse makes. And so that might have put this person over the financial limits.
Okay. Let's have a tip from each of you for people who want to apply for Social Security.
My tip would be tell the Social Security Administration when you apply everything that's wrong. Most people apply because of something happening. They got a bad injury, they were diagnosed with a disease that is something you don't want to have, and that's what they put down. Oh, this is my problem. And of course it is. But put down everything else. Put down the little things. You know, I've got a bad back, I hurt my back. Well, put down your diabetes and your high blood pressure and the fact that you have depression. Put down all of those conditions. The more information you give Social Security, the more likely you are that you're going to get the benefits without having to call someone like me.
What about you, Ed?
Be truthful, and don't be afraid to say that there aren't things you can do. Normally people that we see have serious problems. But even with serious problems, you still can do things, and the judges know that. So don't try to make your presentation one-sided. Be honest and truthful.
Let's see here. We have a couple more questions. We're getting down to time. Here's a 60-year-old male retired from work because of a work injury. He wants to know if he's receiving Social Security disability benefits, what's going to happen when he starts drawing from his retirement fund?
Well, if it's just a regular retirement fund, then it won't make a difference that he's on Social Security. His retirement will be the same, and his Social Security will be the same. If he's receiving workers' comp benefits, then the workers' comp benefits may go down because of the receipt of Social Security, or vice versa. And there are certain government benefits. So if it's a government retirement fund or pension plan. Sometimes certain government benefits add and subtract others, affect others. So if you're getting one government benefit, another government benefit might go down.
Here's a question I have. Why, when making the decision as to whether or not someone's disabled under the Social Security regulations, is the national economy considered?
Because the law says so.
Exactly.
Do you, Ed, ever get questioned on that by unrepresented claimants? Or?
Rarely.
Okay.
It's defined as the regional or national economy, and normally regional refers to, in most cases here, the state of Minnesota. And national economy speaks for itself. So.
But one of the problems that I have talking to my clients about this issue is the issue isn't whether or not there are any jobs in Duluth or in Superior or up on the range that they can do, or would anyone hire them. The issue is, are they physically and mentally capable of doing the job? Whether someone would hire them, whether the jobs exist locally, is not relevant, unfortunately.
And that's the type of questions that I see from unrepresented claimants. They simply
Right.
don't understand the system and the regulations, and that's a common sense question. But unfortunately, it doesn't apply in Social Security hearings.
Yeah,
That's the deal. That's the law.
yeah,
That's
that's
the
the
law.
law. That's
Okay.
the way it is.
Yeah.
All right. One last question. Is there a maximum amount of SSI or SSDI?
Well, there probably is. SSI is, again, it's a set number. It's
Right.
around 700. And the highest I've ever seen, I think, was 2,300, something like that. But there probably is a maximum amount. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. We wanted to let you know that you can have your legal questions on tonight's topic or any legal topic answered every Wednesday at 12 noon at the St. Louis County Courthouse in Duluth through the Volunteer Attorney Program's Ask an Attorney service. You can call 723-4005 to make an appointment. You will get 10 to 20 minutes one-on-one with a local volunteer lawyer who will be able to answer questions and lead you on the right path to find the additional legal help you may need. This program is free and available to the public regardless of need. Remember, you can watch tonight's program again online at wdse.org or on the Falsani, Balmer, Peterson, Quinn, and Byer website. Please join us again next week when we answer your questions about estate planning. I'd like to thank our panelists for their expertise this evening, and thank you for watching. I'm Stephanie Balmer. Good night.